Welcome. My name is Len Lane, and I am the founder and president of Brokers for Life, Inc., and we are Dominion Lending Centers in Western Canada. The topic of our podcast will be about what we consider to be real-life mortgage solutions. Welcome back. At the end of season 1, we talked about technology, and that technology that we use on a regular basis is called Velocity. A long conversation with Heather about that, but today we're going to talk about some new technology that's just come on the market in the last few months. For many years, we struggled with getting documents from clients, but a company called Fastkey Technology has come back and helped us, especially with the CRA portion. My guest today is Dave Ford, and he is the Lender Relationship Manager for Fastkey Technology.
Morning, Len. Thanks for having me.
Glad you can be here today. CRA documents have been an issue over the years. People seem to not keep them for some reason. I'm not sure why. And or they don't have proper access to CRA, or they were doing it through their accountant. So let's take maybe a step back and look at what was going on before. We had several companies that were allowing us access to CRA documents. And of course, CRA eventually shut that down. So what was that difference that they were doing, the way that compared to what you guys are doing? So.
Yeah, my understanding is that the companies that were in this space before ultimately were using the accountant route. So there's accounting documents and accounting process and procedures, as well as accounting software that it's very easy to use and it can provide you instant access and just with the kind of the stroke of a pen, right? One form signed and it's all done. So what CRA deemed as not allowed essentially is just that these CRA document retrieval companies weren't actually doing any accounting services ultimately. So they were essentially using the accounting software forms, everything to do with an accountant, but not actually filing any taxes. And my understanding is that e-file, goes through a rigorous screening process of all users on an annualized basis. And, when they see thousands of tax documents pulled, which these companies were, like they were great companies, the end result was awesome. And I know that, their hearts were in the right place, but CRA said, well, you are not an accountant doing accounting business. Like, no, I'm sorry, but your license is revoked. So, there's there has always been a different method, and ultimately accountants can still get tax documents for applicants. So, that's still good, but only if they're actually accountants doing accounting business. So that's my understanding of what happened with these prior companies.
Right, and in some cases, it was almost like they were giving the mortgage broker permission to get those documents. Am I right?
I'm not sure. I do know. I used a couple of the companies a few times. Ultimately, I saw the accounting authorization form because they were promoted and just around in the industry. I honestly didn't see any issues with it from my perspective. Wearing a broker hat, I just thought, wow, like we can get authentic documents and you can turn it around quickly. Like this is awesome. This is a great service.
Right.
So
yeah. And it was. Don't get me wrong. There were some of our agents who used that pretty much on every file.
Yeah.
It's like it was quick. It was easy. It saved the client trying to find them, and it was just you had them in a matter of a day, if that. Right. So.
Yeah.
What is it that Fastkey is doing differently that CRA is now allowing it again through you?
Yeah, well, so I would like to point out that it's not that they are allowing it and weren't before. This is not the accounting method. So, accountants still have that accounting method because that was always made for accountants. CRA does have this like separate avenue where you can assign an authorized representative to your account, and that authorized representative could have just different forms of access. So, an accountant would have level 2 access. They can make changes to your taxes. They can file taxes for you, and that's what that permission is for. Level 1 access is online access, read-only access, where that authorized representative is simply retrieving, your documents or logging in, giving you information about the account, if there's taxes owing or what's your TFSA contribution room, anything to do with just reading the information. And that's been around since CRA Online was established, and that's for the purpose of let's say a friend or family member or power of attorney, like financial planner, really kind of anyone that you deem to have access could have access. You can set an expiry on it, and that could be quick, like 7 days or a month, or it could be a year or 2 years. So that's this authorized representative. This has been around for a long time. So we have been using this route and still delivering the same results and still just as effective as kind of the first time around.
It seems that there was always access. I know my accountant send Danny an email. I can have my NOAs here in a matter of hours, right? But now that there's another way to do it, I think that's going to help a lot of clients. I know a lot of clients actually get their own NOA sometimes, but they come out with no name on it, which is kind of weird. T4, same kind of idea. So does this access give you access where you can see the name?
Yeah. And so again, my understanding is CRA just changed the formatting. I believe it was just last summer, where the formatting was changed, and a lot of these documents that you've just mentioned, okay, they come back nameless. If you, the individual, Len, if you log into your own account, a huge friction point in the industry, of course, because you send me your applicant to go gather these documents. I do that to the best of my ability, try to navigate CRA Online, and there's 40 different steps between different years that are required for most mortgage files, right? So I do that, and then I send you the documents, and there's no name on them. It's a big friction point. So the formatting as an authorized representative is because you are essentially gathering these for somebody else. The formatting has names on them, the ownership of the documents.
Right, and which is all the way through the process, right? Letter of employment, bank statements, all of that has to be identifiable, right? And that's great that we can get them that way from you. I know it's a common conversation in the industry, in the mortgage industry at least, that authentication of documents is always an issue. It is very hard to spot when it comes down to if somebody wants to be in the business of making fraudulent documents. They get very good at it, I'm assuming. But having them come directly from CRA is going to be a big boost for our lenders for sure. That they'll feel a little more secure in that they're getting an original document. So, Fastkey doing a little bit more than that, though, right?
Yeah. Well, I will just quickly touch on fraud in these documents at the moment, because that is one of the major reasons why we are in this space and why mortgage brokers would use it. It's our understanding is that it's almost 50% of an underwriter's job per file on the lender side to have fraud prevention activities. So, now there's software behind the scenes that can read the metadata of PDF documents to see if it was altered, was it started in Microsoft Word or what have you. But, if we can prove that these were authentically sourced directly from CRA and ship it to lender portal without any possibility of tampering, like that level of efficiency from a lender standpoint is enormous. And same with the broker side. So, we really can make an impact here, and mortgage brokers can, do better business and have more efficient files. Just knowing that everything is authentically sourced, it really is a huge advantage.
Yeah, no question. And in all honesty, we haven't had a lot of it in our business, but when it does happen, it's really hard to spot. I've seen documents that I've gone over at least 4 or 5 times, CRA documents that look like CRA documents, but there would be something, and the lender would usually catch it in seeing that there's a decimal that's not in the right place, or somebody's added a 0 or something like that. It's pretty hard for as trained as I am after 17 years. It is still very hard to to do that. But using the meta information is interesting. That tells them a lot about a PDF, I'm sure. So
Yeah, because to the naked eye, like you really wouldn't. Like fraudsters have got, they're advanced now. They've evolved. So you have to look at the metadata of a PDF document, and thankfully lenders have those readers behind the scenes. But yeah, I mean, if we can prevent it entirely and prove that we've prevented it entirely, well, we can just try to ideally create that super highway of speed and auto adjudication and things like that. As the industry evolves, OCR technology, optical character recognition technology will be implemented, and because the formatting of all of Fastkey's documents are the same, they're all uniform. It would be really easy to implement an optical character recognition tool that would scan line 15,000 for total income, or scan total employment income, or if there's taxes owing, things like that. So we're excited about what's happening in the industry and the future of efficiency, and happy to provide these directly sourced authentic documents.
the same where we're now able to get bank documents directly from the bank, as opposed to doing that step where somebody has to handle them. And we've seen so many messed up ones over the years that some of them stand out quite quickly. But again, it's just that one more step that is secure for the lender to accept those documents. Velocity is working on a program called a verified application, where all of this, including your technology, will be part of that, right? Where the bank accounts have come directly from the bank. The documents for CRA came directly from CRA, right? So there's a lot of things that they're working on in the background that probably in the works in the next year or so as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. And like we do need this. We need to take care of our lending partners. It's why we're here, right? Because we've got access. So yeah, no, hearing those kind of things coming from Velocity is really encouraging. And you asked about additional products, and we're talking about bank statements. So we can touch on our asset report and income report. That is directly sourced from institutions, if you want it as a good segue.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the next part of it. And of course, verifying ID for the client as well, or from the client. But yeah, no question that you had a different aspect on it other than just the 90 days of bank statements.
Yes, yeah. So our tool does have the historical balances and transaction history, which is ultimately what a lender wants to see in terms of the down payment verification, where the funds have been, checking the ongoing payroll deposits and the accumulation of funds. So that's all there. But we do have a few additional behavioral analysis tools that can be used alongside that history. One is a cash flow calculator, and that's important, especially in the alternate lending channel, where a lender wants to see 6 months or 12 months of the banking data, and they want to understand what's the cash flow of this individual's business, and that could be from their personal bank account, from a corporate bank account, depending on how they pay themselves, and newly self-employed people, things like that. So there's that cash flow analysis tool. There are another behavioral analysis tool that goes over the insufficient funds and flags those. Any NSFs or unusual account activity that would flag large deposits, and then debt insights as well. So to cross-reference against the credit bureau and check for loans that may or may not be disclosed, or if there's anything kind of recurring. But just showing a bit more of the character profile of the applicant that you are retrieving this banking data for, and those behavioral analysis tools. Those are important for lenders. So I was actually talking with a lender, and they go a little bit deeper even into kind of behavioral analysis. And my understanding is even the frequency by which someone purchases pet food, as an example, is shows responsibility towards like getting things on time. So it's interesting. Like there's a lot of things behind the scenes that lenders are looking for, but at any rate, this behavioral analysis, this cash flow analysis, all these kind of things are important in building the character profile of your applicant that you can use to support. And really, if you just want to use the historical balance and transaction history, like that's where the data was sourced, and ours is sourced from over 12,000 financial institutions globally. So I know a few people have used it in the new to Canada space, where we're looking at history of funds outside of Canada that are being moved over for down payment, from Australia or Mexico or India, wherever overseas, because there's over 12,000 financial institutions globally. All the majors are on there, and that's been beneficial and really helpful in sourcing where the down payment has come from.
Yeah, and that is a huge one. We just last 2 weeks probably we had one that came from France. We had one that came from Norway. And making sure, because what happens with that money is it's got to be an exact amount that gets deposited, right? So there was one where the bank took their fee out of it. So what was sent from one end and what showed up in the bank account was $50 different, right? So we had to go digging with the bank to verify that they took the $50 and that the numbers weren't just messed with, right? So
yeah, and there's a lot of foreign exchange services like Wise or Forex, where they'll lower the fees, and I believe that the actual exchange rate is a little bit better than from bank to bank, but so we can pick up on those in the history, and it's just, I think it's just important that this report does show, thankfully, everything that a lender needs, right? It's got the entire history, it's got where it was sourced from, the bank account number, which institution, and the entire character profile in terms of name, address, email, everything that you would need to cross-reference it. It isn't the same as Flinks. I know that Velocity and a few other submission platforms have Flinks where it's actually retrieving the bank statements. This is the bank data. So it's in a report format. Again, it's all uniform, and we want it to be uniform for OCR technology down the road. But it shows inflow, outflow, ending daily balance, but it's not the actual statement. It just shows exactly where it came from.
Yeah, so little different detail again. So I believe part of the program too is ID verification as well.
Yeah. So we came out with the ID verification tool to couple with our criminal background checks. So nationally, we are associated with policing agencies to use criminal record checks in the tenant screening or employee onboarding. So, recruiting or mergers and acquisitions, new employee would require, like, at times, a criminal background check. And so the ID verification tool was originally used for that. The ID verification tool that we use is FINTRAC compliant. So, here we are with October coming around the corner. And in the mortgage broker space, we do know that, the know your client KYC compliance, that's a major component. And for the most part, my understanding is that most brokerages' previous KYC just involved gathering an ID in some way, shape, or form, and having a photo of it or a scan of it, into the office. And most mortgage brokers, we're referral business. I know the person personally that I'm completing the mortgage for, and so I'll get a piece of their ID for compliance. But if FINTRAC, who's now adding a different layer of regulation to the industry as a whole, if they want to say, okay, Dave, well, I see you did your mortgage for your mom, but how do you prove that, right? So that's what FinTrack is looking for and governing bodies are looking for is, what did you do to validate that ID? And how do you know that it's not an electronic copy? And is it expired, or what happened with that barcode, or has there been any tampering? I know that identity theft is that's one that's been on the rise significantly, and that's where some of these biggest fraud transactions take place. Is somebody steals your identity and they go out and they obtain a credit card or a loan or a mortgage or something, right? And they'll try to target people that have a clear title home as well, and it's often very sophisticated where there's a lawyer involved. So but our biometric ID verification tool would prevent that, right? So you could not steal Len's ID and then, without surgery become Len, right? So thankfully, this biometric ID verification tool, it is used as a huge fraud prevention tool around identity theft. And I know, over the last 15 years, like there's so many people that have flags on their credit bureau saying, you have to call this person first because, somebody tried to steal their ID and tried to get a loan out, or, there's often been like active things where it's like, hey, let's just go over your credit bureau. What's this derogatory line item? And that applicant says, well, I didn't get that. And then we've got to open an investigation, right? So, I know it's an extra step, and I know that probably the industry is saying, oh, well, it's an extra step and I got to pay for it. But really, if you look back at the number of identity theft files you've worked on as a mortgage broker, like this is that preventative measure and preventative tool that I do think our industry could have used for a long time.
Yeah, no question. It's been one of those industries where it's kind of, paperwork was always an issue, getting the right stuff to begin with. Doing a KYC really didn't come into play until 2 or 3 years ago, really, for most lenders, right?
Yeah.
We're licensed in 6 provinces, and it's a little bit different everywhere.
Yeah.
Saskatchewan probably has the most stringent rules about what you need to know and what you say to the client in advance. Alberta, I find to be a little on the borderline. Obviously, it's going to change for everybody next month, or in October, rather. But it's like BC, disclosure of what the commissions are and things like that are different than everywhere else. Ontario is the wild, wild west as far as paperwork goes, but they're coming down very hard on Ontario. So the FSRA there is really, really clamping down on, because they've had so many huge fraud events happen that it's time.
No, and you know what, you're right. Reading fraud articles, there's been a lot in Ontario. So yeah, I do. I'm surprised that it did take this long. Like ultimately, we are in finance, and mortgage finance is one of the largest financial transactions for an individual, right? Like financial advisors and stockbrokers and that industry that's been regulated as well, and anti-money laundering, things like that. So these regulations have been around in other industries. Our realtor partners, they have FinTrack ID compliance as well. So it's our turn, and ultimately our ID verification tool, really low cost compared to our competitors. I know that we're less than them, and our process is pretty simple, straightforward. So as a mortgage broker, through your Fastkey dashboard, you would simply input name, phone number, email. You'd let your client know, like, hey, heads up, I'm just going to do this ID verification tool so that I can ensure that you are who prove that you are who you say you are, prevent ID theft. And then an email and a text goes out, and they can just do it from their phone. Like our website was built mobile first, and we always had the consumer in mind. So, if the consumer can have an easy to use experience, and they can complete this directly on their phone, or, whatever's easiest for them, desktop is fine too. But if they can have a good experience, then, and the broker can have a good experience ordering, then, hopefully we can see some success.
That's going to be a big part of it, actually, with the MLA coming up. AML, sorry, not MLA, AML, anti-money laundering coming up. It's we're going to incorporate it as part of our process that you have to have this account, so that we can say, okay, the team has access to this. up to them to use it or not, right? But it's just one more step. I think that I think you'll see a lot of brokerages incorporating it into their anti-money laundering process. So.
Yeah. I hope so. I mean, so far, we've been around. We launched during MBABC at the end of March, and it's been really good so far. Like thankfully, you've been really open to having good conversations, and you as a brokerage owner, like you're looking out for the best interest of everybody at your brokerage and what can help them be more efficient, what can help them prevent fraud, and thankfully, there's guys like you that are of the same mindset where this is only going to improve the client process, right? There's less friction because the applicant doesn't have to go gather all their documents and then they're nameless and all these kind of friction points. Well, there's this tool instead. So thanks for having us to the broker demo at your office and this podcast. This has been great. This is exactly what Fastkey is. We're trying to do in the industry, being new to the game. Only been around since launched since March. We've been building since last, I think, August, September was when we started building, but the go live was about 7 months later.
Yeah, takes a bit of time with technology to get up and running, right? And working flawlessly or as best you can. Right?
Yeah, exactly. So, and we've had little tweaks along the way, of course, and micro efficiencies and improvements, so we welcome everybody's feedback, and if it makes a lot of sense, then we absolutely implement it. We're a small enough entity that the decision makers and the changes can take place very quickly. So we had a really good suggestion from another partner at a brokerage. Said, oh, well, why don't you just do this? And thanks Dave Lacosta for that feedback. And we implemented it like instantly, and there was really good feedback. So, if any user out there after, hearing this and, and using the platform, if you have any improvements that we can make on this, like we're all for it. We're here for the long game, and we want to ensure that our customers, whether it's a mortgage broker or an applicant, like everything goes well for them.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much. And I'll let you get on with your day. So thanks for taking the time today.
Thanks, Len. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening today. I hope you found the information that we provided to be useful in your mortgage journey. And remember, you can always find our associates at www.brokersforlife.ca/associates. Have a great day.